The constitutional crisis. It's difficult, verging on impossible, to articulate all the feelings of the past several weeks. President Donald Trump was inaugurated on January 20th and has been hard at work stretching the limits of executive authority and power. Among the more alarming executive orders are implementing the President's Department of Government Efficiency Cost Efficiency Initiative, commencing the reduction of the federal bureaucracy, ensuring lawful governance, and implementing the President's Department of Government Efficiency Deregulatory Initiative, establishment of the White House Faith Office, implementing the President's Department of Government Efficiency Workforce Optimization Initiative, a plan for establishing a United States Sovereign Wealth Fund, establishing and implementing the President's Department of Government Efficiency, declaring a national energy emergency, and protecting the meaning and value of American citizenship. On their face, these executive orders would seem to be anything but ordinary. Some may even appear to be exceptionally positive. Who could be against government efficiency or accountability, the protection of sovereign wealth, or dealing with emergencies? And to be clear, no one left, right, or center is against these ideas on their face. But the implementation of these orders has been anything but ordinary. As a DoD contractor, business owner, elder millennial, and Maryland resident, I'm seeing and feeling the effects of their implementation nearly every day. For several decades at least, the mentality at the DoD in general was to keep our warfighters and fellow Americans safe. Our forward deployed troops engaged in 2 wars were under constant threat. The situation domestically, while not as actively hostile, was still one of constant concern and vigilance. It was my great honor to be part of that organization, working hand in hand with some of this country's bravest men and women, people who witnessed the attacks on 9/11, felt the calling to serve, and left their old lives behind to keep us all safe. I was not one of those people, but I still felt the pride that came with knowing that something I was doing would help them eventually get home safe. It was that recent history that led some to believe that the DoD was untouchable, immune from budget cuts and government shutdowns. Truly staggering amounts of money and manpower spent to support the mission. Whatever it takes, and then some. Could some of that be considered waste? It's arguable, sure, but also a matter of perspective and government priorities at the time. Regardless, the contrast to today is stark. New and young government employees who are looking forward to a career of civil service now sit in meetings crying, wondering whether they will soon be unemployed. The experience as a Maryland resident, where so many current and former federal employees live, is also notable. People who had spent years faithfully and earnestly serving the American public must now stand by and watch their legacy and all that generations before them had built be cursed at or torn down. To be clear, American life is and has always been one of constant change. To say that our history has been tumultuous might be a gross understatement. And we've had prior presidents assert their power in much the same way that President Trump is now. Indeed, it's likely a court, regardless of political appointment, would find that many, if not all, of the executive orders that have been enacted are within the president's constitutional authority. But that's not really the point. The Constitution is imperfect. That fact was known even to the great politicians, leaders, and thinkers present when the Constitution was enacted. The question of whether an act of the president is constitutional is much different than the question of whether that same act is moral, ethical, or even in the best interests of the country. That's why so many of the Constitution's current 27 amendments were passed, to address, extend, or further protect the rights, liberties, and freedoms we all share. But it took brave people of every political persuasion to stand up and come together to make things better. On average, we have amended the Constitution every 10 years, but new amendments have come much less frequently. The last amendment was 34 years ago in 1992, and the one before that was in 1971. Surely the Constitution is not complete. Moreover, and in my opinion, the current flurry of executive orders, along with some of the more recent Supreme Court decisions, does present a constitutional crisis. It's clear that to many or even the majority of Americans, that the Constitution has not been interpreted or implemented as expected. A new generation of brave Americans is needed to address the needs of our country and to preserve our democratic republic for future generations. To decide for oneself whether the current situation presents a constitutional crisis, I pose the following questions. Should the executive branch be empowered to enact unlimited or haphazard executive orders without any judicial review or legislative consent? Should the legislative branch be allowed to create agencies independent of executive control, but with the authority to impose regulations as interpreted by the judiciary? Should the executive branch have the power to restructure government or unilaterally redirect funding previously directed by Congress? What constitutes an emergency? Can the executive declare a minor emergency, and does that allow the executive to have unlimited authority to deal with that emergency? Regardless of the responses to those questions, I'll present the following casual suggestions. Public disclosure from every senator, congressperson, official, or appointee of every publication, meeting, donation, financial transaction, or investment. Require that all investments be handled by an independent third party while those persons are in office. Furthermore, form an ethics court within the judiciary branch with the power to prohibit senators, congresspersons, officials, or appointees from engaging or participating in matters where an actual conflict of interest exists. Require the Vice President and Speaker of the House to provide advice and consent for all executive orders or emergency declarations. Require each new Congress to propose and pass a new budget, including approval for any debt, before any new business can be addressed. I'll admit this one is personal. I'm tired of constantly moving from shutdown to shutdown. It's no way to run a major superpower. Whatever the case, it is clear, at least to me, that brave Americans are still needed to maintain constant vigilance and work together for the betterment of all. The Constitution of our country only lives while we continue to breathe life into it.
All right. So, Julius.
Mr. Smyers, Mr. Bryan.
You have written this article, The Constitutional Crisis, which you read so well. And I was just wondering first thing, could you give me some background on who you are? Because, you did this to me last time, but
Yes.
I didn't do it back to you. So you get to expose yourself a little bit as far as you want to.
Yep. So, my name's Julius Knapp. I'm a 43-year-old Maryland native.
You sure?
I had to do the math really quick. I'm like, oh God.
Early onset Alzheimer's.
Let's see. Grew up in Howard County in Ellicott City. Went to UMBC 2000 to 2005. Mm-hmm. Go Retrievers. And majored in mathematics, got a BS in mathematics. From then, worked a bunch of different. I've worked like an obscene number of different jobs and different employers, but I currently contract for the DoD as well as run my own business, and also do this podcast because I have so much spare time. Which you know.
Much spare time.
But I love doing all of it, honestly. Also went to UMGC, graduated 2021, right in the middle of COVID, mm-hmm. and with a master's in IT systems engineering. And yeah, I think that's all the relevant background for this piece, I think.
That's a lot more than I gave. I mean, it's you pretty much gave a good resume there. I don't think I talked about my college time or any of that, but that's okay. Yeah. So, given your background, this is a pretty personal article to you then. because
A little
you're
bit.
in the environment.
Uh-huh.
Tell me about. Do you feel vulnerable at this point?
Yeah, actually, yeah, oddly vulnerable considering, uh, as a business owner, I've kind of like learned how to put myself out there and be, not feel too anxious. But yeah, this is definitely like a different kind of vulnerability, if you will.
Yeah,
You know, so yeah, a little bit, yeah.
yeah. It's definitely. Certainty is good. I've always heard that markets like certainty. They don't necessarily care about the news as much as they like the
Stability.
certainty. So
Yeah.
your stock might still go up if you had said our expectations are that we're going to lose money, and then you lost that money,
Right.
but didn't lose more.
Then
You're fine.
then you're
The
fine.
market's like, yep, you're okay.
Yep.
Um, but when you don't meet your expectations that you set, then the market falls, and with all this uncertainty, it's very hard for anybody, personal or business,
Uh-huh.
to have expectations, much less meet them, because they don't know what's going to come.
Right. Right.
Um, it's yeah. So working with the DoD, you had mentioned that you had worked with people who were there at 9/11.
Uh-huh.
Um, in terms of, talk to me about the unity now. The unity then versus where we are now.
Um. So I've like the DoD is huge.
Yeah.
Right. And I've only really seen, even in the 15 years that I've been there, I've only really seen probably a small fraction of everything that's there. But certainly, when I started in 2010, there was, this sense of, we have to do it for the mission. There's people forward deployed, excuse me, and we have to keep them safe because the uh, the reports and the images and things that we would see of were just horrific, and you don't want to see that happen to anybody, let alone your fellow Americans. Um, I wouldn't say that that's necessarily changed. Uh, certainly there is an awareness that we're not in wartime anymore, and so the priorities now are to kind of make sure that what what kind of got us to 9/11 doesn't happen again. But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think there's still like a strong sense of unity and a strong sense of purpose inside everywhere you go inside the DoD.
I just had a random thought that, just hearing you talk about that I did not get when I was reading and listening to the article.
Uh-huh.
But I seem to remember that after every war, up until about World War II, we always shrunk back down the size of our defense.
Yeah.
Once the war was done, burn the ships.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, and the Second Amendment was really born of that because that was fought because the War of 1812 was fought with all militia.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was over and everybody went home. And then subsequent wars, the military ballooned and contracted. You had mentioned that since we're no longer at war, and we're far enough away from 9/11 where nobody even considers the war on terror anymore.
Sure.
What's we're going through with right now kind of be in line with the natural contraction and expansion and contraction of defense historically?
To be honest, I don't know that I'm like the best person to speak on that, but I will say, um, I've heard a lot of stories from the career people who've been doing this now, 30 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
going back into the 90s and some even before, and there was definitely the feeling of, oh, the Cold War is over, and as a contractor, I'm seeing it more from that side of the fence. But like, there were companies that were ready to go under
Mm-hmm.
before 9/11 happened, and
Yeah.
for better or worse, 9/11 saved those jobs.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the best way to view that event, but
Yeah. I mean, it's like right now I'm just like coming up with different ideas that I hadn't really thought of before. Like even when I was prepping for this, Econ 101, guns versus butter. Are we sliding more towards the butter?
mm.
Not that I want to think about butter and Trump, but
Right.
I mean, he's a golden orange anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he has enough butter.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably
been in the oven too long. But nonetheless, yeah. So another thing you had mentioned was the amendments. I had wrote down amendment math. You realize 10 of them were passed in 1 year, right?
Yeah, and I did consider that. I didn't bring it up in the article because it really doesn't help my
Yeah.
my point. But I think the message is still the same, that we used to pass amendments all the time. There was this there had to have been, especially at the early years of our country, there had to have been this kind of implied admission that the Constitution was not perfect and that people were going to have to keep working at it. And I really, like, very seriously feel that we've gotten away from that, that time. There's a lot of people who still cite the Constitution as though it's gospel, and settled, and
Yeah.
but then even the people who don't view it that way, though, don't seem to feel the same kind of urgency to change it, to kind of like carry the flag and keep the discussion going.
Yeah.
And this kind of, like, you also mentioned the math, like, you could probably get a sense.
Math major. That's sorry.
So you could get a sense from the fact, my background as a math major and also doing systems engineering, that I'm really kind of like more concerned less with the current state of affairs as much as I am with setting the terms by which the country and our government can continue to thrive.
Right.
It's more about like setting the barriers, setting the rules, putting the rules in place, so that regardless of what our country finds itself facing.
Yeah, there's always I find more and more in life that when there's a principle, there are a positive and negative to it. And it's like with almost any principle there seems to be, It's like, because in some aspects, even though I completely agree with everything you said, you're speaking out both sides of your mouth
A little bit, yeah.
because you're really bashing originalism, but you're saying there needs to be rules, and at the same point in time, it's flawed, but you want guidelines, so you're kind of arguing then more towards the harder interpretation. Um, for me, I feel like the Constitution, in a way, has kind of become like the Bible.
Yeah.
You kind of pick and choose what you want to follow, and you kind of disregard the rest. And it's. I mean, I know many people would say that's not Christianity, but kind of is.
I mean, if
that's
you
why
think
there's so
about
many
it, it really
denominations.
has to be.
Yeah.
Right? The Bible wasn't written in English, and so a lot of that
It wasn't
meaning,
even written in one language.
right? A lot of the meaning is now gone because we just don't necessarily have perfect translations.
Yeah.
And over the now millennia since Christianity's founding, it's fair to say that it's not being interpreted the same way in all cases.
Yeah, I mean, and even though it's only been 250 years or so, the emoluments clause.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel the Supreme Court could enforce that, in Trump's first term because they didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
It's like what exactly was the intention here, and how does that apply to the world to today? Because it was in the Constitution, but nobody had written any subsequent laws to support it in the 250 years since. So everybody was left scrambling.
Right.
And the courts just basically shrugged their shoulders.
Yeah.
And even though I personally believe it's about conflict of interests, but whatever.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think
that is.
I think, and I kind of talk about that in the article that the expectation I think of most Americans is that it's about conflict of interest, but it does not seem to have been really implemented that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you put in some of these recommendations here.
Oh boy.
Hey, no problem. No problem. It's which the very first thing. Should the executive branch be empowered to enact unlimited or haphazard executive order without judicial review or legislative consent? So you're talking about really the division of power, the three branches of government, checks and balances. And I kind of feel like that's kind of related in some way with conflict of interest, because without checks and balances, you can do what the heck you want.
Right.
So, that's just like one little thing that kind of popped out to me. Would you mind expanding a little bit more?
Sure.
On that, because here I am talking, and I'm supposed to be asking questions.
Yeah, no. So this one, honestly, like I have a lot of feelings about this one, and not strictly because of anything that's going on now.
Yeah.
And this is where I think, again, I talk about being an elder millennial or whatever. 9/11 happened at 9/11 was terrible for everyone, but 9/11 happened, at a point in my life where I was right out of high school, just started college, was taking philosophy classes, learning about other cultures, and just kind of like at a point in my life where I'm just questioning everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And among the many things that happened after 9/11 was, the Patriot Act and a flurry of executive orders from Bush to kind of meet the needs of the day. And I remember very clearly, having these same kinds of like constitutional arguments. What why is it okay for the president to be able to just enact these kinds of pseudo laws without any kind of oversight?
Signing statements. I remember that during that time.
Right. Yep. Yes. Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
It was kind of like a line item veto, but different.
Yeah.
You really screwed McCain with that, if I remember right. But anyway, go on.
Yeah. But I mean, that happened under Bush.
Yep.
But then it still happened. It just kept happening. Like everyone complained about it, and yet here we are now in 2025, and it's still happening. So, my feelings about it are, one is like we all seem to kind of agree that we don't like it. At least we don't like it when our party isn't in power.
Right.
So there's, I feel like that's, again, this kind of tacit admission that there's something wrong with the way this power is being exercised by the executive, and the Constitution needs to provide an answer, at least some clarity to the American people about what is allowed. What is when can these things be challenged? How can they be challenged? And I think the more obvious answer might be, well, you challenge it in the courts, and that's being done. That's been done. But they're happening at such a like rapid fire pace. It's almost impossible to I think it's I don't know if it's been stated publicly by the administration, by Trump or JD Vance or anybody, but the point is almost to try and like put them through as fast as you can, hoping that maybe one or two of them are caught and what do you call it? They're caught and like
released.
That they're shot down, but
right.
But most of them make it through because the American people only have so much time and resources to devote to this kind of thing. Like we all got fucking lives to live.
Not only that, but here we are March 1st, and Trump's been in office since January 20th, so about 6 weeks.
Yep.
We're only 6 weeks in.
Right. I can only imagine what the country.
Do you remember what happened 4 weeks ago?
No.
You don't.
That's
half the reason. So that way, if you're always flooding the zone, you wind up getting a lot of amnesia about what's already occurred.
Yeah.
It's with the blow up yesterday. I don't remember what happened 2 days ago now.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, I feel like yesterday is going to be another one of those, where you were, kind of when it happened, because, you can't go anywhere on the news, social media, and not see someone talking about it.
Yeah. And for future reference, we're talking about Vance and Zelensky and Trump in the Oval Office.
And I think that's probably all that we'll need to say for
probably
future
all we'll
us
need
to know exactly what we're talking about. But kind of coming back to that question, and you say talk about out of both sides of my mouth. I think the Constitution does that all over the place, right? It's all, and at least as far as this is concerned, I'm also not necessarily opposed to the president being able to enact them at this pace. It's we're a nation of 340 million people. Things happen quickly, and the government has to be able to provide some kind of response in real time. Having said that, this is still like way too much.
Yeah.
But therein lies the constitutional question. Like, what can we set some boundaries, or at least some rules that we as Americans can say, okay, yep, this makes sense. It should be allowed in this situation and not here, or not this one.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
See, I'm reminded of this is Generation X here. Maybe you'll remember it. Maybe you won't because you're Mr. Millennial.
Yeah, I'm sort of Zennial, but I hate the term Zennial.
Yeah, because that makes you
I'm
sound more like
old enough to say
that makes you sound like more like Millennial and Generation Z than
yes.
X. But I get what you're saying. But the whole I think it's After School Special. I'm a Bill.
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live did that.
Yeah.
And then because this was during the Obama administration, and Obama has solved everything with executive orders through the gridlock, which Trump does not have, by the way.
Right.
But Obama had gridlock in the House and the Senate, so he just went with executive orders. So SNL did a skit on it, did the whole "I'm a Bill" thing.
Right.
I'm a Bill song, and then another actor walked up right beside him. Was like, "I'm an executive order." That's it. There's no process of how to get a bill passed in law. Nope, I'm an executive order. We're done.
Yeah. I mean, if nothing else, we have to solve this for the After School Special.
Oh, totally, 100%. But nice historical skit. There you go.
Yeah.
But I really feel, though, I'm with you that this has been a problem. And it seems like both parties always forget that the pendulum always swings.
Yeah.
You're so happy that Trump has become a strong man. Are you going to be happy when, let's say, for instance, AOC comes of age and she can run for president? She might be old enough to do now, and she wins. Are you going to be happy with a strong woman in the White House? No. Are you going to be happy with a strong Adam Schiff in the White House?
Yeah.
As strong as Trump? Oh, heck no. So it seems like, once again, with contradictions, they're trying, in my opinion, they're trying to blow up the federal government as a whole and just leave a strong executive.
Yeah.
And that scares me.
Feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not the country that, I learned about in middle school and high school civics.
Well, and I think it was, I first heard about it, I think, from Bill Barr.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure the theory has existed or originated with somebody else. But he talked about the unitary executive theory.
Yeah.
That the executive essentially has all the power to do whatever they want. As long as it's done this way.
Yeah.
And that's that I listed in at the front of the article, at the top of the article, some of the executive orders that I really feel fall in line with that way of thinking. Most notably the what was it called? I've lost it there, but ensuring accountability for all agencies.
Yes.
Which essentially removes the idea of having an independent agency, such as the FCC, the FEC, the SEC, all of these agencies which we had were previously set up to be independent of the executive. Where regardless of which party was in power, they would always, they were set up to be bipartisan, so to speak. And that particular executive order does away with that idea altogether. Moreover, it installs what can only really be described as a political officer in those agencies, somebody who has to report to the president and ensure that the agencies are always following whatever the president views as the correct interpretation of the law.
Yeah. Which was like Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
Sean Connery kills the political officer right away. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, this is an issue that, America has struggled with historically. I mean, going back to the Civil War, I mean, the movie Lincoln actually talked about this,
Uh-huh.
I have to get this, I've most likely exceeded my authority with
Right. With the
Emancipation Proclamation.
Yes. Yep.
So we need the 13th Amendment.
Right.
So that way I'm okay.
Right. Yeah.
It's and he used this, which is an interesting. That's actually an interesting document to look at for these times. Not necessarily for the civil rights end of it, but in terms of executive power. Because if I remember right, he wound up basically using wartime powers to write that.
I think. I mean, I'd have to look at the
because
text.
I think at the text, it was like written for
that's
the states that are still in
correct.
rebellion after this point.
Right.
So that way it'll be enforced by the military afterwards, and it's it kind of makes me wonder. I know every now and then there's a smattering of talk of Insurrection Act. I wonder if that would wind up being where some of what would come up down the line afterward would be set in terms of historical precedent. But I don't know. That's neither here nor there, or nor in your article. But just kind of musings on my end.
Yeah.
So. White House Faith Office.
Yeah, honestly, I as I was doing the background research for this article, I went and looked at all the executive orders, and honestly, that one had kind of like slipped by me. Like I hadn't. I don't really
I think that was
remember.
in the news for about a half a day.
Right, exactly.
And something else
flooding
happened.
the zone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean this now, and reading the text of the order, it's to make it easier for the president, the executive, to communicate, coordinate with community organizations, faith-based organizations, which all sounds fine, but again, it's not. It doesn't really fall in line with our expectation of the separation of church and state.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I have not read the executive order. I mean, you said you did.
I read the.
Is it geared only towards Christianity, or is it towards all people of faith?
It says it doesn't list a particular faith.
Okay.
So my concern is only really just in that it shortens the separation between.
Yeah, and that was actually one of my problems. Well, not problems, concerns, I should say, with W, with his faith-based initiatives. And I'd also brought up, I was like, look, if dependency on a government is a bad thing, which is what conservatives usually say all the time, why are you making faith groups dependent on the government? It's
well,
but I mean, I totally understand if you're trying to do some good and you're using faith groups who, say do hurricane relief or whatever, like I did back in college, and you want to help fund that. Does the concept of having faith groups dependent on the government really come into play when you're just trying to do some good?
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, it's it's so easy to get caught up in ideology that you
Yeah.
miss the intent.
Yeah.
So
I do think, honestly, and this one hasn't really been covered much, but I'll speak up for it a little bit and then talk about why I think this is such a terrible idea. Because most of the press for the sovereign wealth fund has been relatively positive.
mm-hmm.
And if I can like turn it, like, are you familiar with?
I'm not.
No. Did you have an opinion about it?
No, not really, because I'm not really informed on it.
Gotcha. So sovereign wealth fund is generally something used in like smaller countries. It started to kind of be used in larger countries, but never nearly as big an economy as the United States. But the idea is like you have like Norway, I think, has a sovereign wealth fund because they have a lot of oil and natural gas, and so for the benefit of everyone, the state puts those resources essentially into this sovereign wealth fund, and the state can then direct the sale of those resources, and that's how they use that as like an alternative. So instead of like raising taxes, they have state control of the sale and distribution of these resources, and use that as an alternative revenue stream for
Okay.
for their
So that helps fund the state government.
right.
Okay.
The United States is huge, and really anything could go into a sovereign wealth fund.
Mm-hmm.
And what's to say? We have a lot of federal land, right? And what's to say? Somebody with a lot of hotels or.
Wonder who that could be. So.
Yeah, I'm not speaking of anybody in particular. No, but let's say these are national treasures,
mm-hmm.
and they should be protected. And so the government should buy these properties for their preservation. I mean,
yeah,
why not? Then the government can then operate these hotels, and as they turn a profit, those profits would be returned to the American people. I mean, that's great, right? I mean, I'm being completely sarcastic.
I know.
You can tell I'm saying. but yeah, I think it's and I'm honestly kind of like shocked that nobody else on the right seems to have kind of put that together, that this is just another way for a future president to seize control potentially of
well, that's where tribalism comes in.
Sure.
And that's where you become blind. I mean, I really feel that every Democrat needs a Republican in their life to call them out on their
Sure.
bullcrap,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
Just for reasons like that. I mean, it's for all the crap about Hunter Biden. I probably wouldn't even heard about it if it weren't for my Republican friends.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I'd agree. Like,
I mean, it's and if my Republican friends are just watching Fox News or OAN or whatever, I sure as heck know they're not knowing. They have no idea about what I'm talking about when I bring up to them about Trump. So, I mean, it's really kind of important to listen to your political enemies who are your friends type thing.
Yeah.
Don't just like brush them off. You gotta listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for any of Hunter Biden did commit a crime.
Mm-hmm.
But for any of the right wingers, listening to this, like the crime he was convicted of was essentially gun possession.
Yeah. Well, drug
and
addict. Yep.
and the NRA frequently just leaps to the defense of people who are charged with simple gun possession, but nobody spoke up.
Yeah,
for Hunter Biden.
I remember this is completely off topic, but
Sure.
I totally remember the outcry over the deal he got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it might have been Barnacle or somebody in the Morning Joe said, "Look, the charge of of gun possession while being a drug addict is very rarely charged. The reason why he was charged that is because he's Hunter Biden, and that sweet deal he got was because he's Hunter Biden." Right. So it was kind of a wash.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to seem as though like we shouldn't prosecute criminals.
No, we should.
But I do.
I definitely should. Yeah.
Like I, to be honest, I think that was within his Second Amendment rights to, and the fact that nobody came to his defense in that, on the right seems, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, getting back to the article here, you had mentioned further down. Let's see here, where are we at? Yes. Require the Vice President and Speaker of the House to provide advice and consent for all executive orders and emergency declarations. Vice President. Is he executive or is he legislative?
Ooh. Yeah. It's a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Yeah. But
I mean, he's president of the Senate, so I could definitely see the advise and consent there. Speaker of the House. I don't know. I mean, advise and consent is usually a Senate thing.
Yeah, we do usually think of it that way. But this is kind of like going back a little bit to, obviously there needs to be some ability. There is some expectation among the American people, or some portion of the American people, that the president has to be able to deal with certain situations in real time. So, the idea behind this, and again, I'm not a constitutional scholar. I'm just a guy trying to solve a problem, and hopefully other people will pick this up and make it better. But providing advice and consent from only the Vice President and the Speaker of the House, I think that's a pretty low bar, but it's still something.
Yeah.
And generally, the American people, at least in recent history, tend to prefer divided government. The current situation where the Republicans control the House and the Senate and the executive has not really been the norm, at least going back, through Clinton. I'm actually not sure what if it was that common before that.
Yeah.
Only because I didn't pay attention, but
yeah, that's fine.
But yeah, I feel like there has to be some kind of bar, and I think allowing the people to have a voice on when these executive orders are enacted is proper.
So are by voice, I mean, are you giving them veto power or anything like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Advice and consent is like kind of morphed in recent history, right? I mean, the Senate is supposed to provide advice and consent for appointees.
Yeah, and then they confirm them afterwards.
And then they what?
They confirm the appointees afterwards.
Yeah.
So would the Vice President and the Speaker have confirmation power, I should say then?
Yeah. I mean, that's how I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
And in this, like, 20 minutes of, or however long it took me to write the article, and the 20 minutes we've been talking.
Yeah, we're up to 43 now.
Oh shit.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
All right. So, and the last thing that you had brought up, let me bring this back up again. Or at least the last thing I wrote down, I should say. Yeah, here we go. Public disclosure of any senator, congressman, official, or appointee needs to be made transparent. Basically, I'm totally paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But
you get the point.
Are you aware of why lobbyists are called lobbyists?
Well, if you're talking about like the literal reason that they would stand in the lobby of Congress and wait for Congress to, what do you call it? Vacate or whatever for the day, and then they'd catch them on their as their
and if I remember right, and I might have this misremembered. This might be twisted history or an urban legend or whatever. I seem to remember that lobbyists were not allowed past the lobby of their offices.
Okay.
So they had to do the pitches in public. So that way there were no backroom deals. That's why they were called lobbyists. And I feel we've totally gotten away from that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It might just be a myth. I might have to look it up. But that's I do seem to remember, some history teacher somewhere telling me that. And it just kind of stuck.
Huh. I mean, that makes sense. That also explains why we have the expression backroom deals.
Yeah. Backroom deals, lobbyists. Yeah. If your lobbyists are making backroom deals, there's a definite problem.
Yes.
On 2 counts.
Yeah.
So transparency. Going back to the movie Lincoln. Like, you watched that movie, right? Do you remember, the people at the toll bridge?
Asking vaguely.
Yeah. So they were petitioning the president directly. They walked up to the White House.
Right.
They lost this toll bridge and they'd like to get it back because they need the revenue stream, and this has been their family for years. And that's one thing that so much simpler times, even when the country was going through crisis. Now I'm sure it's been, Hollywood has romanticized it, but I just feel that level of transparency and accessibility has totally been lost.
Right.
And this is probably a podcast for another time, or an article for another time, but we're stuck with how many electoral votes?
Right, 400 electoral votes.
537. Yeah, so you
538.
have 437, I guess, in the House.
Yeah.
And that number really hasn't changed in a long time, but the population has.
Right.
Massively. So the accessibility, as the population goes up, the accessibility of government goes down. And I feel like that might be part of what's driving us today.
Yeah.
We're so completely disaffected.
Yeah.
And alienated in some cases. And so people want a strong man to come along and make things right, but everybody has different definitions.
Yeah. No, I didn't get to it in this article, but yeah, that's absolutely. I've presented that, as a potential constitutional amendment in other places, that the size of Congress should be proportional to the size of the population.
Yeah.
But also in a way that makes every one of them accessible especially to the people in their district.
Yeah.
I think I was looking this up actually like a week ago or so, but like the number of the average number of people that a person in Congress, and here I'm strictly talking about the House of Representatives, represents is like 1 million people.
Yeah.
When, if you look at the average in most other countries, it's around 30,000 people.
Yeah.
So if we want to get back to that, then we have to like massively expand the size of Congress. And personally, I don't care. I'm fine with this size of Congress growing. Hell, the people who object based on like, oh, well, now we'd have to build a bigger building. Okay, well then build a bigger building. Like we've built bigger buildings.
Maybe not make the next one out of marble.
Right, right. But also, you have the opportunity to potentially say like, hey, we're gonna have the East Coast, the Washington D.C. House of Representatives, is just gonna house people on the East Coast, and then maybe another one in Missouri, and another one in who knows where. Not only does it address that problem, but it also creates a kind of like center for where people could go, that they're not, the people on the West Coast don't have to come all the way out to DC to protest, to talk to their representative in Congress while the bill is being debated. I don't know. Just ideas from a guy trying to solve a problem. but yeah, I totally agree that Congress needs to be more accessible. I think there's other benefits too, right? Like, how much does it cost to buy a congressperson, right? If you're if you're trying to bribe somebody, like, you only really need to bribe how many people to be able to pass a bill, potentially. If you massively increase that size, well, now, you're potentially like, you're changing that balance. So now it doesn't require a millionaire to buy votes. You'd have to like literally have some obscene amount of money. I don't know. I'm getting off topic now.
Yeah, you're fine.
You get the point, I think.
Yeah.
Makes it like hopefully prohibitively expensive to try and buy Congress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Final question.
Okay.
What do you think about the word "tip" being the center of the word constitutional? Sorry. I even said the joke, damn it.
Oh, well. Can I think about it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll draw on the tit in the middle of the word constitution.
Go three-breasted woman and Total Recall if you want. Yes.
Right.
Anyway, that's about it. But thank you again for doing this, Julius.
Appreciate it. Thank you for letting me say my piece.
And I don't know if the microphone picked up the little girl running.
Yeah.
Or outside the door. We're doing this at a library, so it's worked well so far. But, but yes, thank you, everyone, and please, feel free to leave comments on the website or send us an email or whatnot.
Yep.
That's about it. Everybody have a good day.
See ya.